Welcome, everyone, to the Minions of the Zoo. It's Tuesday. That means I'm your keeper, Skep Tock here. And with me, I have Minions Prospero.
Hello.
The Hairy Channel.
Good evening.
Jenna.
Hi.
Sora Luna.
Hello.
And we have Darth Functional with us this evening.
Good evening.
And it's so nice to be here with all of you. We were just chatting about everybody jumping up and down about the Supreme Court case, I guess, that Prospero had been researching. And Prospero is kind of our legal affairs correspondent here at Minions. And so, you know, it's an interesting case. It has to do with guns, and there are a lot of Minions who are interested in that. So I just want to go around and say hello to everybody. And as soon as we get the opening conversation out of the way, I think we'll break and go straight to our legal correspondent for an update on Supreme Court issues. So at any rate, Prospero, how have you been today?
I've been pretty good. I'm getting my energy back,
Yeah.
which is nice.
Now you got the second shot when?
Saturday morning.
How did that affect you?
I felt really sleepy.
Yeah.
All Saturday afternoon, and
It's like me every day.
And then Sunday was kind of drag-assery. Yesterday was pretty good. Today it was almost like one of those recoil situations where
Rebounding out.
yeah, I wasn't I just was not super energetic. It was not, I mean, life altering other than all right, fine, I'm not going to do that. I'm going to do this instead because it doesn't require as much energy.
Yeah.
But it passed.
Yeah.
It passed. Significant improvement over Sunday. Sunday, I was just like,
It's a little bit of an insult to your immune system.
Yeah.
It causes you to make antibodies. So
yeah, Sunday I was running a low grade fever, and I was just very tired again, and it just I did not run a high fever. I didn't get beset with.
But you're feeling better now. That's the point.
Yes, that's all the point. I feel
back up to battery.
I feel great. It's not enough of a reason for people to eschew it by any stretch of the imagination.
All right. Well, I wouldn't want to do that.
Bless you, by the way.
Yes, absolutely. Issue. Sora, how was your day today?
Oh, it was pretty decent. Can't complain.
Did you work?
Yes, unfortunately. Or fortunately, actually.
Your voice goes dead when you say that, yes.
My cold dead soul.
Tomorrow will be fun because we have some surgeries.
Okay.
First thing in the morning, 8 o'clock is our first one.
Do you do those in the office?
Yes.
Wow.
And so I'm the least squeamish one, so I get to go in. I enjoy it.
Like, yeah, cut that bitch open.
I'm just slightly sadistic enough to just enjoy the horror in the eyes of the patients when we take them in.
Are they really scared?
Yeah, because they're dumb and they don't listen to us when we tell them what to expect and how it's going to be done. Sorry, I didn't say dumb. That just slipped out. How should I put it? Let's be nice.
Bullheaded.
They're unprepared for the majesty of the moment.
I guess.
Yeah.
Selective hearing is what they have.
Yeah.
Or are people with white coat syndrome that ignore even receptions or we give them reading materials. They don't read the reading materials. That's fine.
Okay.
But it'll be a fun day, and then we have a long weekend, so can't complain.
All right. Very good. Sounds good. Jenna, how was your day?
Tiring, but wonderful.
Yeah. Do you have any news you want to share with us?
Nicholas was born yesterday.
Yeah.
He is
How long were you in labor?
What are you doing going and get knocked up for, woman?
I'm sorry.
Jenna genes are good genes, but this one doesn't have your genes.
This one's Children of the Corn genes.
This is Children of the Corn. This is what
He
in our
doesn't
family we
have
call it a volunteer.
eyebrows. They're so blonde.
Yeah, his eyebrows are clear.
His eyebrows are clear.
So luckily my father-in-law is a female doctor. And
OBGYN?
Yeah, he did the C-section.
Not a female doctor.
Well, I actually said that like that to, I don't
A
know.
birthing person's doctor.
Yes.
Oh,
Thank you.
oh, don't get me started on that.
Voice of God.
So I knew Nicholas was in the best hands,
Yeah.
and we got to take him home. He was born a little before 8 a.m. and he was home by 1 p.m. And
That's fast. All swaddled up and ready to go, huh?
yeah,
Didn't have to have glucose or any time under the sun lamp or any of that.
no, he had no jaundice. You saw a
Sweet.
picture of him.
Yeah, no, he looked good. I can't believe he was born that recently. That just surprised me.
He didn't take the subway ride, so he didn't have the scrunched up face and the cone head.
Well, I was going to ask, was he a C-section baby?
Yeah, he
Because he's got a C-section head.
he
He does. He has a Gerber
Yeah.
baby head. Yeah.
He was a week overdue, and she finally decided she was sick of being pregnant. So,
Cut that kid out of there.
well, at 10 p.m. on the 16th, they tried inducing and stuff, and it just wasn't working out. So finally, John said we needed just his heart rate actually dropped to 92
Yeah.
on the little heart. You know how they measure the baby's heart, right? It's
Yeah.
in,
Baby's under stress, so they took the baby.
so they got the baby out, and as soon as he was away from that lady, he was a happy camper with a great heartbeat. I mean,
That's a wonderful thing.
adoption is a beautiful thing, and both James and I got to be there for the delivery,
Preach it, sister.
and
Got to be there for every moment of that child's life.
Nikki got to be delivered by his grandfather. That's pretty cool, I think.
Yes.
So he was the surgeon.
Yes.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. When you said caring for, I just thought he was coming by, and taking a look at the baby. He actually was the surgeon. Very good. Excellent.
So that's a pretty cool story. He'll be able to tell, my grandpa delivered me.
Yeah. Well, I mean, that's wonderful. So it's big news for you. It sounds good. Harry, how was your day? Did you have any babies?
No, I did when Prospero told me about Jenna and her kid and her going to the hospital, for the delivery. I said that you probably showed up wearing running shoes and a catcher's mitt.
I'm not kidding.
Got the kid. Take off.
Yep.
No, everything went reasonably well today.
Yeah.
I had my car detailed. I've had the car for 20 years, so I thought, well, maybe I should have somebody who knows what they're doing clean it once.
Yeah.
So it's ready for the next 20 years.
It's very
And
good.
so this guy shows up yesterday and did the magic number, but it's full of the chemical smell. So it
Yeah.
looks really good from a distance.
Yeah.
I can't get in it right now, but it looks great.
But it smells so bad you can't stand it.
Well, I mean, once you get past the headache and the eyes, it's fine. But
Yeah.
other than that, it's pretty good.
All right. I wouldn't breathe a lot of that stuff. Be careful.
I am being careful.
Yeah. How many miles do you have on it?
130,000.
I barely got the new off it.
Yeah, that's because I usually am on two wheels the rest of the time.
Hear you.
Because Bay Area traffic is extremely unforgiving. Speaking of the Bay Area, the county, Santa Clara County, has decided that you can have people go back to work, but you are required to collect the vaccination status of anybody coming back to work, and anybody who refuses to provide proof that they were vaccinated shall be treated as unvaccinated.
Wow.
They're doing that
kid you
here
not.
too.
Do they have
but not with
camps for the
vaccine, but-
unvaccinated, like they do in Canada?
I'm sorry, did they have what?
Camps for the unvaccinated, like they do in Canada.
Well, it's like a super fun camp. There's crafts.
Sure.
You can make clocks
Sure.
and pens for government offices and chairs
I think that's you learn to concentrate there at the camp.
and license plates.
Yes.
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. Not jail, but it's a camp. It's a happy camp. Camp of happiness. Yes. Please face wall.
If anybody suggests lampshades,
Yeah.
you need to move.
I go in there. Anyway, so situation normal sounds like in California, typical overprotective nanny state bullshit.
Yeah, I may have let the mask slip just a little bit when I was talking to one of my customers. And I said the inside part in my head out loud and said, well, these people just really can't get over the idea that they need to go off and do something else sometime soon. They just want this to go on forever.
You're not wrong. I agree with you. So very good.
And I thought, nope, shut up, Harry.
Functional. What's up, man?
Hey, mundane day, chores, news, video games.
Yeah.
Nothing special today.
Nothing special, but nothing disastrous. A day without disaster is a good day.
Well, there was disaster in my video games. I wiped out an entire star system. That was some brutal stuff.
Was it your star system?
No.
Or was it someone else's?
Someone else's.
Well, it's not really a disaster for you, is it?
No, but the 300,000 virtual characters probably think so.
As long as you're not there, them, who cares, right?
Right.
Yeah. All right. Be a little bit libertarian about this. All right. Well, anyway, seriously, all kidding aside, it's so great to have you guys here with us, and I'm so glad that the Supreme Court finally put an end to the red flag law.
Stop it. Stop it.
You want to tell us what's going on with that?
Stop, God, Jesus Christ! There was a case before the Supreme Court, and the decision came down on the 17th, and it was 9-0, which of course is kind of rare. So it does catch people's notice, and not only did it catch their notice, but it caught their inability to read. Apparently.
Did they decide for the plaintiff or for
They decided for the plaintiff. In this case, a man had placed a handgun on the dining room table and asked his wife to shoot him and get it over with. And we can all understand frustrations like that.
It's like Saturday in my house.
Yeah, I was like, and the wife instead left the home and spent the night at a hotel. And the next morning, when she could not reach her husband by phone, she called the cops.
Yes.
To request a welfare check.
Okay.
And so they encountered the man on the porch, and they called an ambulance, based on the belief that he posed a risk to himself. He agreed to go to the hospital for psychiatric evaluation on the condition that the officers did not confiscate his firearms. But the minute he left, the officers located and seized his weapons. He sued, claiming the officers had entered his home and seized his firearms without a warrant, which is required. And as a violation of the First Amendment. The district court granted summary judgment to the officers. The First Circuit affirmed that.
They granted summary? No, that they didn't do a summary verdict, did they?
Yes, they did.
The judge directed the verdict?
A district court judge, yeah.
Directed the verdict. He said that
The officers were fine. This is fine.
Yeah.
There's no problem here.
But
And then
there was not an issue of cause. That's what a summary judgment is.
Yeah, it's just,
Wow.
it was just there. It's done. Deal with it. The First Circuit affirmed, extrapolating from another decision, the theory that the officer's removal of him and his firearms from the home was justified by community caretaking exception to a warrant requirement.
Okay.
So it was held by the court that the holding nor the logic of that precedent case that was cited.
And usually in that exception, if I remember how that law works, it is usually the peace officers is the last person who has the ability to stop the serial killing.
Stop the killing.
Right. So and that obligates him to take the weapon.
Stop the killing. Stop the beating. Stop the
stop the bad thing. Stop the breaking of the law by battery. Yeah.
Right. Or render aid to injured.
Right, yeah.
To an injured individual.
Render aid is different, but
that is still
involves squashing somebody's rights. So they ruled all the way through.
They actually discussed Skep. I mean, I'm not quibbling with you. They actually discussed the whole rendering aid thing in this.
Oh, really?
As well as falling under the community caretaking standard.
Oh,
because it came up in oral arguments, and in questioning.
Okay.
But what they said was neither the holding nor the logic of that precedential case justified the warrantless search and seizure in the home.
Therefore,
they found for the plaintiff that they had the police had no right to go in and take that man's gun. He had voluntarily gone. There was no clear and present danger. There was nobody in the damned house.
That's the $64 question, was whether or not he represented a clear and present danger. That's really what the court was saying, was that doesn't meet that standard.
Right, because they had just the sightings and all the this, that's, and the others that went on in this are, that would be a lot of noise for everybody, and I'm not going to go through it. The case that they were trying to use as precedent was an impounded vehicle case.
Yeah.
Which is I think all of us can see logically is very, very different. This wasn't an impounded home. The man had left it voluntarily. The mistake the man made was telling him he had a gun. That's basically the mistake he made.
Well, wouldn't the woman have told them that he had a gun?
Yeah.
They would have known.
But what I'm saying is what he did is he asked them to not take his gun, and I don't know whether that provoked them to be stupid.
I'm curious about something.
Yeah.
Was this the guy's wife?
Yes, it was.
Yes. And where did this happen? What state did this happen?
Rhode Island.
Oh, Rhode Island is a community property state. So she owns, if he owned it prior to the marriage, it's still his gun. If he bought it during the marriage, half of it is her gun.
Yeah, and they'd be violating two people's rights.
No, she can give permission to give the gun over.
Yeah, but she didn't.
Oh, she didn't?
No. All that happened is that she called and asked for a welfare check.
Oh, see, I was under the impression that she asked the officers to take the gun.
No. When she couldn't reach him the next morning after she fucked off after he.
Now I see why you're so okay. Now I see.
Yeah. No.
Okay. All right. So how does this squash the red flag laws?
It doesn't.
It doesn't. Tell us how it doesn't.
It doesn't in pretty clear part. Because it's laid out in the concurrence by Samuel Alito. And I am going to quote him just to make sure that we're clear, because there seems to be a lot of lack of clarity here. This case also implicates another body of law that petitioner glossed over, the so-called red flag laws that some states are now enacting. These laws enable the police to seize guns pursuant to a court order to prevent their use for suicide or the infliction of harm or innocent persons. See bunch of sightings. Mm-hmm. They typically specify the standard that must be met and the procedures that must be followed before firearms may be seized. Provisions of red flag laws may be challenged under the Fourth Amendment, and those cases may come before us. Our decision today does not address those issues.
And those are the red flag laws. Excuse me. Those are the red flag laws that are already on the books, right?
Yes.
The recent rhetoric is all about expansion of that to
Right. There are
far too open.
Look, skimming through the concurrences. Won't someone please think of the children, Roberts? Is very squishy when he's talking about the whole that whole notion of the community caretaking standard, and so that does not bode well for somebody chucking the red flag laws, because also they require a court order. Also, Kavanaugh seemed a little squishy. It's hard to say. Alito almost sounded like he might crack the door open on this one. Since he brought it up specifically.
I want to ask you something about Kavanaugh.
Yeah.
Do you think he's a Roberts in training?
Yes.
I do too. I do too.
I mean, whether he's going to be won't someone please think of the children all the time, like Roberts seems to have become, I don't know. But I think he's got, the man read too much fucking Rousseau. If you get my drift.
But is he also
the social contract?
Won't somebody think of the Washington Post? Is he doing that?
I don't think he's as concerned about fluffing his image.
That's Roberts' deal.
Oh, Roberts
he's a fucking whore. Excuse my French.
But yeah.
That's a legal term, Jenna.
Roberts is a creature of DC.
Yeah.
He is. He's a creature of DC.
He truly is. He's a swamp creature. You're absolutely right. I agree with you.
Kavanaugh is a little less so, as is Barrett, but I don't know how Barrett's going to swing either. I don't know.
Barrett's a big unknown to me.
Yeah, she seems a little intimidated by...
I agree. I think she's like a little girl in a big...
I think Roberts and Kavanaugh might scare her.
Yeah.
Because she sure buckled on the Pennsylvania case. And she could have stood with the others, and still it never would have been heard.
Remind me on the Pennsylvania case.
That was the one they said they weren't good at the election.
Well, no. But who voted which way on that?
Thomas wanted to hear it. Alito wanted to hear it, and that was the only two that wanted to hear it, apparently.
Holy crap! Yeah, that's right. That's right.
Yeah.
That's right.
And then Thomas wrote that scathing, "This is inexplicable," dissent.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I was very sympathetic to that, even though it was a totally fair election and there was no malfeasance by anyone.
No, they were just concerned that somebody might want to do something in the future.
Yeah, exactly. That's all it is.
But they decided that this, because the last election was moot, that they couldn't hear the case. And Thomas pointed out that many a case, an individual case may be moot. That did not mean it was moot.
It's a class of cases.
It's a class of cases.
Right, yeah.
And that acting well in advance of the next set of circumstances would secure everybody's feeling that there was nothing to worry about.
It would reflect well on the court, and it
would reflect brilliantly on the court that they would show that kind of foresight to get rid of. But Roberts is much more interested in polishing his image than he is, and the image of the court. He is very, very worried about the image of the court.
If they had heard that Pennsylvania case, and that had resulted in a significant reversal,
yeah.
Do you know how that would have splattered Robert's reputation? It would have ruined his reputation.
It would have ruined his reputation.
In his eyes.
It is rumored that Roberts was concerned that there would be riots if they took the case.
Right.
Or if they adjudged a problem.
Yeah.
That is not supposed to be the business of the court.
Mm-hmm.
There are civil peacekeepers that are in place in order to take care of things like that. The court is not supposed to be worried about
Optics.
public affairs
But
management.
before we get too far down,
They
that
sure
road-
weren't in Brown v. Board of Education. Let's just say that.
But getting back to the red flag laws, how does this not affect red flag laws?
It doesn't affect them because those have a court order.
So explain how the red flag laws would work and why this doesn't affect them.
If they are properly structured, a red flag law requires someone to go and request a court order to have the police remove the weapons from the home
Okay.
because of a danger of suicide or homicide
Right.
from the owner of the weapons.
Right.
I have a bit of a problem with them because if the owner of the weapons is denied the ability to have representation at the hearing that leads to the court order, I think you're abrogating their Sixth Amendment rights to face their accuser. The whole thing with this is it's the live to fight it another day argument.
Mm-hmm.
You can go to court and get your guns back. Well, that is placing both a financial burden and a time burden on an individual who has been for no reason.
Right.
Without their response. Let us say there may be a reason they're not if they're not able to give a response, if there is no legal representation there to raise argument and question, because there are numerous cases, as we can imagine, a marriage going south, a bitter intra-family feud,
An offhand remark at work that Harry seemed a little off. Let's take his guns away.
Yeah, I mean, it's political.
I'm going to call the police and get it.
Weaponized political activism is very much a potential part of this. Feedback.
Okay, Jimi Hendrix, let's turn off the reverb.
That's the problem with the red flag laws, in my opinion. If the guarantee of representation is there,
Yeah,
and the
right.
Sixth Amendment is on top of the Fourth is not being roughed
How do you guarantee representation? You can't.
you can at least have representation there. Remember
Let me just offer a
red light cameras got thrown out on one of those.
Right. Well,
issues.
but think about this. So a bunch of Karens get together and say, we're just going to start reporting people.
Mm-hmm.
Start with the A's, Alan A. Aardvark. And, and we called the judge and we got a court order for Alan A. Aardvark's guns, Alan B. Aardvark, Alan D. Aardvark, and just going through the A's, B, C, until they get to they report everybody in town because they're going to get the guns out of people's hands out of town. I don't see anything that would stop people who were badly motivated that way, who were might be well motivated, but or have the good of the community in mind, but end up abusing that the red law.
Well, they can. Right. What I'm saying is, if the I guess we'd say the defendant in this instance, because they are being accused, is not present to argue their position.
It's an interesting thing because he's not accused of a crime.
No.
What is happening is
he's accused of a potential of a crime.
It's you can't be accused of that. That's not
I know.
something you can be.
It's a fucking bill of attainder, is what it is.
It is a bill of attainder. That's exactly what that is. That's like definition.
That's my problem with red flag laws, is that they're bills of attainder that involve property, not the liberty of the individual. But it is still it's an insidious fucking notion.
It's an insinuation on the individual. It's absolutely not insinuation, but a prevail upon them. It affects them in a material way. And the other thing is that I think the instant red flag laws go into effect, they're going to be abused.
Of course they will be. They already were.
It's going to be like the reporting system on Twitter.
That warrant that was served in Maryland where the man ended up being killed.
Yeah.
It was his sister.
Yeah.
She didn't even live in the household.
So there you go.
Now, it's the concerned neighbor. Look. Oh, here's the problem. Community caretaking. You don't want to ignore people who are making noises. If somebody at work said, I'm going to go home and I'm going to fucking kill my wife, something like that, you should call the police because they made a material threat against somebody.
Yeah.
You're not wrong to call the police.
Right.
I don't have an objection to that. I don't have an objection if somebody has become radically unstable and they are armed and alerting the police to this. I don't know whether that's what red flag laws are about, though. It doesn't quite seem to be that way because there's already the community exception to the police entering a home when there is clear and present danger. So it seems like they're trying to say, but they can't anticipate all of them, so we want a hotline, in other words, which is, as we said, you get to malign an individual, you get to accuse them of the malice of forethought when no crime has been committed. And it involves a great deal of mind reading and tea leaf reading.
Yeah.
And it is tailor-made for abuse.
It really is.
And it's a violation if there is no representation present at whatever hearing is done for this court order, and it very well may be a rubber stamp, roll it up before the judge, get the stamp on it, with the cop just tapping his foot there waiting for that old court order.
Yeah.
Which is a vaguely weird way to get a warrant.
A pliant pro-gun control judge who routinely grants these things just so you can get guns out of people's hands. Yeah, I can see that happening.
Everywhere.
Yeah.
Every state's got one of them.
Oh God, yes.
And the thing is that they pat themselves on the back and they use that community caretaking exception. And they violate someone's Sixth Amendment rights because you are seizing their property just like asset forfeiture.
How about the fact that
without proof?
There's a thing in the Bill of Rights that says that the right to bear arms shall not be infringed. How about that one?
Yeah, we do.
Does it infringe that right? Because I think it does.
It could.
Pretty sure it could.
It could.
Yeah,
it would depend on the underlying.
It would not necessarily. Yeah, but and the abuse of it definitely would.
A known felon who is armed, someone who has served time for violent crime, they are out and they are armed. Ta-da! You're not infringing the second.
Because he's lost his right. He doesn't have that right. He only has partial citizenship, basically. He can't vote. He doesn't have a right to vote. He doesn't have a right to.
He can have his right to vote reestablished before he can have his right to own a firearm reestablished.
Yeah.
I think that's an okay punishment for somebody who's abused their rights.
When
take away the right, maybe permanently, maybe temporarily, but.
Well, of course it's taken away temporarily when they're imprisoned.
Yes. With, good reason.
Yes. There's room to argue. There's room to argue as how long that lasts if the individual is paroled. That has to do, and I think it almost needs to be wrapped up in how we classify these cases. That if you are a judged guilty of X, you will never get these rights back. I'd rather see that codified than left in this vague wonderland.
It's very definite. It's not vague at all in Texas because here's how it works. And I know many, and I mean many, people with felony drug convictions. And felony drug convictions in Texas is, a quarter of an ounce of meth.
Yeah.
So, and that's what happens to them. They get stopped with a bunch of meth, and it's actually for their own consumption. That's the thing. But it doesn't matter. And they get nailed with felony. They lose their right to vote for the rest of their life. They lose the right to bear arms for the rest of their life.
I don't agree with that. I don't think that's right.
And that's what happens in tech, and that happens on drug charge. There are people who have been convicted of marijuana charges in Texas who have lost their right to vote forever, have lost their right to own a gun forever.
There's no sense of proportion.
No.
And that's...
I think if you get committed for first-degree murder, you can lose rights. I think if you get a drug charge, you shouldn't lose that right to vote.
Especially if it's a non-violent one. Like you would hope that because it's called the correction system, you're not just paying your debt to society, but you're trying to come out and become a member of society again. So on principle, I would say that if you have served your time and you've turned over a new leaf in the system, that you should be able to walk out and get a gun, even if you have violent conviction. But unfortunately, it doesn't seem to be the way that jurisprudence plays out, in that people can serve, their 10 years or 15 years or whatever, and then just get out. And in some states, like you can see that the recidivism rates are like astronomical. I'm looking at you, Chicago, Portland. Some of these cities, it's this revolving door policy, and I can understand why in certain cities they have that 3 strikes and you're out rule, where you rob a bodega, you go to prison for 5 years, you come back out. You rob someone on the street, you're going back for 10 years, you come back out. After that 3rd time, you're gone. You're in jail forever.
There's a lot about this that could be loosened up, and a lot of it that could be tightened up. It's just, I don't want to take up the whole show, right, Skep? But the whole point is, as disappointing as it is, for everybody that's seen the clickbait headlines, this case did not strike red flag laws.
No.
Yeah.
It could. That's why I wanted to have this time and to read specifically what Alito says, because even though he did not write the main opinion of the court, his concurrence carries weight. And by him saying this is not about that, it's really not about that. You can posit what's going to happen when the first red flag law makes its way, a case involving one makes its way to the Supreme Court, which I expect will happen. And I expect it probably won't take all that long for it to happen. But even then, it's going to depend on which case gets there.
Yeah.
If I were involved in the legal advocacy against red flag laws, I'd be looking at the broadest, the one that would, if you got the ruling you wanted, which were this is unconstitutional, would de jure strike the others. But that's not guaranteed by any stretch.
It's an interesting thing. I was just reading in Fourth Amendment. They consider it to be a Fourth Amendment ruling, a reminder that there's no place like home, is the headline on the SCOTUS blog. And it says, held 9-0 in Canalia versus Strom. That community caretaking exception to the Fourth Amendment, which applies to cars, does not allow police to enter a home without a warrant. Assholes. 9-0. I was looking through some of the other cases that the court is looking at.
Oh boy.
look, interesting. In a 6-3 decision along ideological lines, this was about the justices looking at the retroactive application of jury unanimity rule.
Yes.
That a decision last year that established a right to a unanimous jury in state criminal cases does not apply retroactively. So evidently somebody said, hey, wait a minute, I didn't get a unanimous jury requirement in my trial. I want a retrial. And what I find interesting is that it was 6-3.
Yeah.
With the usual suspects voting for the criminals.
Yeah. It was the Louisiana case that that kicked that you do not require a unanimous jury on what was it, a capital murder case? I think it was.
I forgot what.
Louisiana shifted their law, and it was going to bring them out of the woodworks. Okay, fine. We're just going to have to tell you all one more time. Yeah. No, you're not magically grandfathered in. It's
one of those weird things where they have to almost have a separate ruling for Louisiana anyway.
Yeah, their law is just
because
so
their law
bizarre.
is so French law. But they also said court revives the federal appeal for oil and gas companies in climate change lawsuit. The court's 7-1 ruling in British Petroleum versus Baltimore means the companies can continue their effort to have the case heard in federal rather than state court, which is large.
Yes.
That's large because state court, man,
and forget having that heard in state court. That's just they want to go for the jugular. The closer you get to the polling the individual in the street, the worse it is in a case like that.
Yeah,
because it's the notion of deep pockets and fuck you.
Well, yeah, and also a lot of state judges are elected.
So
that was a terrible idea. So anyway, in another thing, unanimous court greenlights company's lawsuit against the IRS. It made my little libertarian heart happy for a moment. Said on tax day, the justices reinstated a Tennessee firm's challenge of an IRS notice on reportable transactions. So evidently some Tennessee firm had challenged what is a reportable transaction. They had some transactions that they did not report. The IRS nailed them on it with a fine. And what these guys get to do is now they can take the IRS to court, which will probably result in an offer and a fix.
Yeah, probably.
Voila. And
please make this go away. We don't want people hearing about this.
Yeah. Well, and it's the court also agreed to dismiss cases involving a Trump-era abortion regulation. It also added new cases on arbitration and habeas relief. So it's a really interesting court session this time.
Yeah, they also are taking the Mississippi case. That's the
now, tell
abortion.
me about the Mississippi case. Was that the abortion? That was the 15 week.
15 week. They're taking that one.
Wow.
This one has major implications. So.
Well, yeah.
And it's going to set up a whole lot of hoo-ha in front of the court. You just know it will. I don't mean in front of the court physically in the building, but in it.
What do you think about that? What do you think about Mississippi saying, "Hey, if that fetus is at 15 weeks and there's a beating heart, you can't. You have to let it go to maturity."
Well, personally,
absent devastating health consequences to the mother.
Personally, I don't have a problem with limiters like that.
Yeah.
Where pregnancy can be easily ascertained prior.
Mm-hmm.
That if you did a 10-week limiter, I'd be like, hey,
What do you say to the women who say you don't always know that you're pregnant by then?
I'm sorry, you're stupid.
Yeah.
Wait, you don't always know you're pregnant when you're what?
Well,
prior to 15 weeks.
Yeah, that's all. That's 3 months and 3 months and 3 weeks. So it's almost 4 months.
So are they the one that were smoking that crack we were talking about
No,
earlier.
actually, you know who that happens to are the gigantic,
Very, very large women. Yeah.
They have to. Sleep
They're
with the
frequently
outbreaks.
dysmenorrheic anyway.
Yeah, exactly.
And because of their obesity, it can happen in some rare instances. And those instances where people already are aware of the fact that they're dysmenorrheic,
Yeah.
they should be very diligent about unprotected sex. Now,
What
granted,
do you think about the fact that there's no exception for anencephaly? That's a mistake on Mississippi's part. I think they will use that to overturn this law.
Yeah, I think they will. But almost all of these laws.
Anencephaly, by the way, guys, just Skep throwing out the $1,000 word there. It just means a baby that's born with everything but a developed brain. And so that you have a heart, you even have a little cerebellum to keep things beating.
Autonomic nervous system working.
Autonomic nervous system and parasympathetic and sympathetic nervous system, as well as the adrenergic and cholinergic nervous systems, all in place. So the heart beats like it's supposed to, and all that happens. It's not a human, in my opinion, because it has no mind, it has no brain, it has no. It is a body without a mind, and they said no, you can't still that beating heart. You have to take that, even though it's pointless, to be born. And does that represent, and there's risk in any childbirth. Does that represent a risk that?
It's a horrifying thing.
Yeah,
it's an absolutely horrifying thing.
Absolutely,
there is nothing that can be done. Because no brain developed.
And there's some very sick religious people, I'm sorry to say, who say they're beautiful babies too, and they're born and they're beautiful, and sometimes they come out and they look really normal. Usually not, but sometimes they come out and look pretty normal, and you just go, oh wow.
Well, face first, yeah, but most of the time the back of the skull is caved in.
Yeah.
Okay, can I give my Mormon opinion?
Please.
So we're talking about a baby who has no chance of brain ever working.
No, there isn't.
Never have a thought.
There is
no brain. No brain there.
Little bit just to keep the system running.
Be healthy for the mother to carry that baby.
Yeah.
Yeah, it doesn't really impact the mother's health particularly, because all the
baby's
blood flow and that kind of stuff is still going
still
on.
Demanding the nutrients and blood flow and oxygenation.
Because it's still undergoing cellular division, but it's not going to develop.
And there's no brain.
No brain.
None.
So Mississippi wants this mother to carry this child
to term
that I assume will die in womb, or if not right after birth.
Yeah, I mean you could put tubes in it and throw nutrients into it, and it would live for an indeterminate time. But they don't do that. They allow them to starve when they're born. Sorry, but that's the brutal truth.
That's
worse than aborting the fetus.
More
to me.
Yeah, to me it is too.
The baby, first of all, that's not, the mother has to go through carrying a baby to term and then watching. No,
it's pretty brutal, yeah.
As far as horror stories go,
I don't think that baby should be carried to term.
Well,
I would file that. Yeah, I would file that under, extenuating circumstances.
Wildly extenuating circumstances.
I am pro-life, but that's not a life.
Correct.
That's the whole point, and you're absolutely correct. That is not life.
I'm of the mind that, I'm fairly liberal, safe, legal, and rare. I still cling on to that mantra because that's what I believe when it comes to this hot issue. And I think it's simple to sort of set a cutoff time at roughly 5 weeks when brainwaves start developing and being shown.
It's not
And
5 weeks.
That's not
It's
5 weeks.
It's 21 weeks.
Yeah,
21
that's
weeks?
20 or 21 weeks.
23
depending
is the upper end. 21 is the safe cutoff based on the science last time I looked it up.
They've had
But I mean, when do brainwaves start being registered?
Organized brain waves, they start around 22, 23 weeks. That's why 21
okay.
is, if you
I
want
don't
to
remember
use,
the number. It's not like I
basically,
need
if you want to take the definition of a person being dead because their brain stops working
Yes.
and apply that same standard to a fetus, which I
Yes.
think is, if you're going to leave emotion and religion and all the other things out of it and just look for an objective thing based on something we already have, 21 weeks becomes a very good number for, without a good reason, terminating a pregnancy.
Yes.
I've said this, and I've been particular. People do not like it when I say this sometimes, but if the woman I loved was going to stand a significant chance of dying, there is no baby in this world that I wouldn't abort. I'm sorry, because I understand that that's a tough stance to take, but I think that when you're talking about the legitimate welfare of the mother, if there's an actual life-threatening circumstance in a meaningful way, not some trivial bullshit, I'm looking for a loophole way, I don't think it's right to force the mother to carry the baby to term.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, now I'm going to go all sanguine on you.
Knock yourself
Well,
out.
can I just say this before you go all sanguine?
Sure.
So every time my mother gave birth, the doctor said to my dad, if one goes downhill, do we save your wife or the child? And my father chose the wife every time. My mother had horrible pregnancies.
Mhm.
And I have to say, as a mother myself now, and with a husband who's the father, I agree. If I had to make that decision, I would choose James. If men could have, you know what I mean, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
If you had to make that choice, we understand. Okay. I was going to just read something from. It's actually from Healthline, but it's pretty good, and it's very much for laymen. With a fetus, within 4 weeks, the rudimentary structure known as the neural plate develops. Okay, and that's the precursor to the nervous system. And it does some stuff. It folds itself on the neural tubes and blah, 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 which is the thing that is going to become the brain. It has what it's called the cephalid portion of this tube-like structure that actually becomes the brain eventually. And the other part of it is called the caudal portion, and that becomes the spinal cord. The neural tube continues to grow, but around week 6 or 7, it closes. Okay, and that's when the brain separates into 3 distinct parts: the front brain, the midbrain, and the hindbrain. It's also during this time that neurons and synapses connections begin to develop in the spinal cord. These early connections allow the fetus to make its first movements. Note that happens in the spinal cord, so we're not to the part of the baby that is capable of thought. Okay, during the second trimester, all right, 3 months, 12 weeks, that's when the brain starts to take command of what the body does. All right, and so there are movements from the hindbrain and also from the cerebellum, which is beginning to develop now. One of the notable developments, sucking and swallowing, are detectable around 16 weeks, and a lot of people believe that that is should actually be the cutoff. But at 21 weeks, is when most people say that when the baby can begin to swallow. That when you see the swallowing reflex, that is when the nervous system is developed enough to call it, a brain, a real brain.
They've done encephalographs of fetuses.
Sure have.
And if you were to take the encephalograph of a 16-week-old fetus
Mhm.
and give it to a neurologist, and they looked at it, and then you said, and you didn't say it was from a fetus, you said, this person was in a car crash, are they brain dead? They would say yes.
Mm-hmm.
That's all I'm trying to say.
That's absolutely right. That's
I'm
what this
just
says
talking
too.
about, organized brain waves that basically say there's a person inside there.
Exactly.
Where does it go
that's
from
what I
being
was
a
trying to
human
say,
body
too.
to a human being?
It's important to remember that the baby will kick and move and do other things an entire month before the phenomenon that Harry says, where there are brain waves that would indicate to a neurologist, if you looked at an encephalograph of that the patient was alive. And a lot of people say, well, if it can move, it can kick, it moves its hands, its little, proto hands towards its little proto mouth. That's a human being. They see that and they project onto that. But that thing does not have brain waves that are organized in it doesn't have the brain waves that we have. It doesn't have anything approaching that. So and I'm just trying to back up what Harry was saying.
Yeah, and personally, I'd be open, if 10, 20 years down the line, we actually discovered, no, there is sort of conscious thought, weeks before that, I'd be open to be like, okay, maybe that should be the new line. But, I'm pretty much on board with what Harry was saying. Sorry for misspeaking 5 weeks. I probably meant 5 months, but you never really, you judge it by weeks.
I think I knew what you meant, man.
Yeah, because if the inverse is true, then when do we pronounce people dead is generally when there's no more brain function. Then it can be applied the other way as well, unless there's new information.
So getting back to the original question that caused this sanguine moment to happen, do you think that between 4 and 5 months of pregnancy is a reasonable time in which to get an abortion?
With no justification. Yeah, basically because I choose to.
Right, a choice abortion.
As the, what's the correct term?
Bodily autonomy?
No, womb-bearing person.
Yeah.
I think that's a reasonable start. Now, there are obviously other ways to look at this in terms of loss of potential. There's all sorts of other ways one could think about this, but trying to just be as dispassionate as possible about it, that's the best I could come up with.
Yeah, I agree with you. I would remind you, Harry, that some wombs are penises.
Oh, yeah.
And some penises are wombs. So we can't use any words to describe anything anymore.
That point ain't right.
Have a nice day, everybody.
What was your question? I'm sorry.
So my question was, if you're going to have an abortion, is it right for the state? Does the state have a duty to protect the baby inside the woman when the baby develops enough of a brain to call it a brain, which we've all agreed now is at about 20 or to 21 weeks, probably 21 weeks. And I think it is. But I just was curious to see if who agreed with me.
Okay. So your question is, do you think the state should step in if at 21 weeks a woman wants to have an abortion?
Yeah, the state can
she
say
doesn't
no.
understand birth control.
Right. The state can say no. If she says, I didn't know I was pregnant, I think that's unreasonable.
So, Jenna, I think there might be an easier way to think of this, because the thing is, after 21 weeks, who decides if an abortion is allowed or not? That's really the question. Should it be the state? Should it be the mother? Should it be the medical ethics board of the hospital? Should it require 3 doctor signatures? Because that's the real question. It's not whether the state, who may be the
Well,
enforcement branch, is the one that decides. It's who decides. The state just deals with enforcement when people break the rules.
Well, this is
In
my
my mind,
issue.
I want to know who decides.
I don't want the state in my womb, and I don't think abortion should be used as birth control, but I also don't want the government in my business.
Well, we also don't want people callously.
Sora.
Is that Sora or me?
Sora.
Okay. I don't. So, who is going to decide? Is there a method for this? Because there certainly are going to be circumstances where, like we said, for the good of the mother, to protect the life of the mother, it may be decided, right at delivery time even, that they have to do something about this to save the mother's life. And in that circumstance, we probably don't have time to go to the government birth/death board, because you could just use the same one to decide who gets Medicare benefits and for experimental therapies and who gets to have their child carried to term.
Well, shouldn't there be some sort of command structure or hierarchy so that the doctor makes the call, the attending makes the call, and should it have been a suspect call, it gets brought up to a medical ethics review, and then if they find that there are potential criminal charges, then it gets taken to the state by court?
That's a perfectly fine system. At least it's consistent. The only problem is if there's too much of a threat hanging over the doctors, and the doctors don't have enough autonomy, they may just choose to act in their own self-interest, not the interest of their patient, in which case they get sued after the fact by the patient's estate, and their insurance company pays it off and they don't care.
Yeah.
Well, that goes back to what my father had to choose with my brothers and I when we were born. When mom was crashing, who do we save? Luckily, we all came out alive. My brothers are assholes. That might be the reason why. But it was, well, of course, nowadays, how dare I say, it was left up to the other parent, because he's just the father. What does he matter?
Yeah. And I'm sorry, Skep, I didn't mean to hijack your topic. I was just
No.
I was trying to point out that it isn't an either-or situation.
Yeah.
It's just you have to decide who decides. And anytime somebody says, well, the government decides, if that's sort of their answer, you kind of go, when has that ever worked out?
I'm from the government, and I'm here to help.
I actually think of it just not in a different way, really, but the way that I look at it is this is about extending the protections of citizenship, and about when do we do that, as opposed to keeping anybody from doing anything. This is more about when do we say that this is now a little tiny citizen and we're going to protect it. We're going to offer it the same protections that any other citizen of the United States has. And that it's going to, it's little, it's in the womb, and it needs protecting. And the state has a vested interest in protecting that little potential citizen. Those citizens are of great value to the state. They are literally the reason the state exists, and therefore, aren't worth protecting, and just worth protecting based on the fact that protecting life is good. We kind of have all agreed to that, and so at one point do we say, okay, this is now a life and it's worth protecting? That's all.
Well, is my audio level a little better?
Yes, it is.
Okay,
Yeah.
sorry about that. Still getting used to the new software, as you've probably figured out. So, for instance, here I'm going to get us canceled really well. You talk about whether kid goes to school gets a hold of the kid, decides that the kid is actually trans, but they just don't know it. And without even the parents realizing it, the state, in the guise of the school, intervenes. So you've got a 5-year-old here who's basically being given medical treatment against the will of the parents in some cases. And we say that this is okay because the state is fulfilling this role to protect the child from the backwards thinking transphobic parents. That's the way the narrative goes, right?
Exactly.
And
we all agree with that, Susan.
Right, and I think there are people who would probably say they don't necessarily think that the parents should be out of the loop on this, and that the parents should be able to maybe consult with multiple doctors, and that maybe the school psychologist isn't really the right person to decide whether Susie should be Sammy, or But so if we're talking about that, we have doubt about that at 5 years old. How is it possible to have so much certainty about the good judgment of the government at 22 or at, minus 3 months old?
Very fair question. It's a monstrously good question, and here's my answer to it. It isn't really so much the judgment of the government as it is a protection of the citizen. This is not dissimilar to the way that you are protected by the police from someone who wants to shoot you. This is protecting a fetus from somebody who wants to cut it into pieces because it has been adjudged to be close enough to that it is not different from in a material enough way to not deserve the same protections that an out of the embryo fetus would have, which we call a baby.
So viability is 21 weeks.
Viability will change every single year for the rest of your life.
Absolutely.
Viability is a terrible, terrible metric.
I know.
For whether
I actually had a...
Sorry, that was just a reflex. I apologize, Jenna. I've been arguing with people all day.
Actually,
I have a friend who gave birth at exactly 21 weeks, and the hospital refused. This is sick. They refused to help the baby because the baby was at 22 weeks. The baby was born alive. The baby did not get any care because the hospital policy, and so the baby passed.
They have successfully taken care of neonates from 20 weeks up.
Yes, they have, but the hospital policy...
So it depends on hospital policies. That's something, you brought up a very good point, Jenna, and instead of berating that hospital, it is something that pregnant women need to look into as to hospital policies. What is their neonatal care policy, and when do they begin rendering aid? Because people, if they were aware of these things in advance, could make different choices, possibly, not always.
What if
I'm not putting the blame on this woman by any stretch.
Bet that woman had no choice. I'll bet that woman went to essentially a charity hospital. I'll bet that was
she
not
was taken by ambulance to the closest hospital.
Yeah, she
didn't have the opportunity to choose.
Know where I live, so you know what the closest hospital was.
Oh, yeah.
And
Well, yeah, she didn't have time to get to
Boston.
To Mass General.
Yeah. I think I think when children are born alive, and you're within, and cephalic children are born alive, Jenna. So there is a set of decisions that have to be made for policy. I have a problem with given the fact that neonatology has gotten so much better and that we have a fair number of very successful saves. I don't mean that these kids are, have terrible brain bleeds and are rendered functionally incapacitated for the rest of their lives. Nothing like that. I mean, my husband's nephew was basically great-nephew was born a spider monkey. I mean, that's what they called him. He still had the downy hair all over him. He was that preemie. He's well over 6 feet tall, strapping lad, and bright as fuck. So, and he actually had some, some of the brain bleeding and the things that can impact preemies. But they were in a very good hospital system in California, and he was given the best possible care. When you make an arbitrary decision at 22 weeks, that does make me squeamish. The child was born, successfully attempted to save the child's life. This isn't a matter of that's 21 weeks is not an irrational time to attempt to save a child's life. 15 weeks is irrational.
It was 21 weeks.
And I think what they could do, and I would encourage hospitals to consider this, is do your rudimentary stabilization and then do the brainwave test. Anybody home or not? Because that's the standard we use for already present people.
Mm-hmm.
I think that would be, doesn't that sound reasonable? Or do you think
that sounds reasonable to me, but
that's not doing an EEG. I don't think is some kind of hideous burden.
No, they didn't. So,
by comparison to, I'm sorry, you're 7 days off.
mud flight, everything was not available. The hospital, of course, didn't want to spend the money and didn't have the resources for a NICU baby, but they wouldn't even med flight the baby, even though the baby was alive.
That irritates me because there are NICUs in Boston that would have taken that child.
But they wouldn't med flight the child.
That's what I said. That's what's irritating to me. They wouldn't.
But one of the things I think that's probably going on here is there was a judgment where they looked at that baby and said, look at the mother, look at this baby. This baby is not worth this much effort. Let's just let it die. Yeah, I agree. If it was, a high class person with a lot of money.
Well, how do you know it wasn't? It was a friend of Jenna's.
Was it really?
Yeah.
I didn't realize it was a friend of yours.
Yeah, she said it was a friend of hers.
So this was not a charity case, because I was guessing that this was a charity case. That,
No.
A penniless person going in. So
No.
Really? So she just suddenly went into labor and had to go in in an ambulance?
She got taken in by ambulance. She woke up bleeding heavily.
Yeah.
They stopped the bleeding. They did stop labor for a little bit, but water had broke.
Yeah, they didn't have a chance. Infection was going to kill the child if they didn't go, and her,
And the mom, yeah.
Yeah, they were probably scared to try and transfer.
But the thing is they
NICU. Okay, I see.
They do something like that, but they don't NICU. They don't med flight NICU the baby. That to me is
and we have great hospitals.
That's awfully bean. Yeah, I know. Yeah. Mm-hmm. They're great hospitals. You actually have good medical care where you are, Jenna, by comparison to what a lot of people have in the country, and you don't have the best care in the area, in that area. It's why you use doctors from Boston, but
that's some of the best medical care on earth is in Boston.
Yeah, and if that child had been born at Mass General, nobody would have said, well, I'm sorry, it's not quite 22 weeks. They would have said, get this kid to NICU now.
You would have had
most hospitals,
4 residents and
18 nurses going, look at the spider monkey, let's get it hooked up.
Yeah, exactly.
Most hospitals go batshit trying to save preemies.
Yeah.
And it is, I guess the thing to do is to approach the hospital administrators and see if they can't fundraise for a NICU on the Cape.
See, both.
There are a lot of travelers in the area. Things happen,
Yeah. Both my children were NICU babies. Both of them. Both of them. And Andrea, the second one, who was born when Mary was in her early 40s, spent 2 weeks in the NICU and saved her life.
Well, the boy that I mentioned was in NICU for, I think, close to 2 months.
Yep.
I mean, because
Andrea was premature, and they come out, they develop into humans, and go on and have real lives, turn into real people.
yeah,
And that's the sad thing. It really diminishes. You said something at one point a couple of months ago about you were quoting John Donne, for whom the bell tolls.
Mhm.
And I was thinking about, every man's death does diminish us. No man is an island,
And the potentiality in children it used to be be universally recognized.
Yeah.
And I think when you make I can understand that they don't have a NICU. What I would be doing as a hospital administrator is broadcasting that loud and long to the money on that cape and saying, don't you want the hospital here to have a NICU? We have people who have estates on Martha's Vineyard. Are you going to we can't be in the business of telling one of the Obama children that their 21 week year old infant
is not worth saving.
Is not worth saving. Go, you sell it to them any way you can.
No matter what Michelle Obama says, I believe the Obama girls would be treated. Well, I guess Michelle said they'd be treated differently, but I think they'd be treated differently in another way, that they would move hell and high water to make sure the girls and that baby was okay.
Oh, there would have been a med flight for that.
There would be a Martha. They wouldn't even stop at Cape Cod. They would go to Martha Vineyard straight into Brigham and Women's or that or whatever.
And the thing is that it's hospital policy is all well and good, but I mean there could have been there could have been a blizzard, there could have been no med flights, there could have been a lot of things that could explain this better than I'm sorry you're 7 days too early.
Mm-hmm.
Which is I don't know. That seems like it's taking a giant shit on the Hippocratic Oath.
Give me a reason why they can't.
Yeah.
One of the reasons why we convinced John to volunteer to help out after that happened,
you voluntold him, in other words?
Well, my friend actually said, I don't want another mother to go through this.
Mm-hmm. I wouldn't either.
And
how long ago was this, Jenna? How long ago did this happen?
8 years.
8 years ago. God damn, that happened in 2013, folks.
Where babies born, they had the technology.
Oh yes, yeah. I mean, my our nephew, our great nephew, was born. Oh, good God!
It's not like it happened in 1965. That's my point.
Yeah,
that happened now.
Yeah, he was born in the early 2000s, so it's.
Fuck.
That's extremely disturbing.
Very
disturbing to me.
Yeah, really.
Anything that what it reminds me of?
What?
It reminds me of the, albeit I know it was a bit out of context, Northam's remarks. We'll put it in a room and have a little conversation and make a decision.
Yeah. Not punch him in the face for that.
Yeah, I think I know what he might have been talking about.
Yeah.
But I was not.
Oh, this is the governor of Virginia.
Yeah, I was.
Okay, Governor Blackface, right?
Yeah,
okay.
I wasn't feeling particularly charitable.
He wasn't in the hood.
Coon Man wasn't particularly charitable toward him. In the best of all possible lights, I think I know what he meant. This is a ain't nothing that we can do scenario. But he didn't say that.
It was not conveyed that way at all.
No, it came off kind of the way doctors have of
smack the baby. Hey, it's a girl. Now let's go into the room.
yeah, well, but the way doctors have of speaking of things, so goddamned impersonally. Which look, I get why they do it. I understand. People need to be able to survive the profession that they're in.
Especially when they're making tough calls.
Well, and especially, and if you've wrapped yourself in every case, you'd fly apart at the seams. But he's in politics now.
Yeah.
And he's been in politics and had been in politics long enough to
he's not in politics because he's a great doctor.
Yeah,
that's for sure.
Does he believe you should wear a mask?
Unlike, I think, Rand Paul, who is a medical doctor who is very precise in his speech on the floor.
Very different specialties. Rand Paul is in the king of specialties. He is an eye surgeon. Northam is a
pediatrician.
He's a pediatrician, which is probably the second lowest respected. Dermatology might be the least respected specialty.
Yeah, except
pediatrics.
Enough people started being diagnosed with dangerous skin cancers that I think dermatologists may have gotten a bump.
Yeah, that's a good point.
Pediatricians, I think the world of pediatricians because
those of us with children do too.
They have a thankless task.
The good ones definitely need to have a good disposition.
Yes, yes, they do.
Speaking of the Canadian Pediatric, Society, strongly encourages anyone born 22 weeks and 6 days or less to only receive palliative care.
Oh, I thought you were going to say get a COVID-19 vaccine.
Fuck them.
Get a job.
But that's
wait. Say that again, Sora.
So,
how many weeks for palliative only?
20 under 22 and 6 days. So they start counting
23 weeks.
So no, it's a distinction. So 23 weeks and up, the survival rate is one way. 22 weeks and 6 days is usually when hospitals and other people try to give intensive neonatal care. The percentage of survival is tiny. So most 68%. So they show between 2010 and 2015. This is a 2017 paper. Number of live births for 22 at under or equal to 22 weeks and 6 days was 332 in Canada. 68% received palliative care. Only 32% received actual intensive neonatal care. So meaning 68% were just allowed to die. And there is an article where this one lady, now it is older, it is from 2015. So she was told that her 22-year-old preemie should just be allowed to kind of die basically. So that's interesting. I don't know anything about pediatrics in Canada, so I thought that was when I heard, like, I was just shocked by this idea of that a hospital policy can be just nope. I mean, I can understand that some hospitals not having the funds or technology because not every hospital's staffed for that, but not
but
to
almost
even
this almost seems arbitrary.
Yeah, well, we do chemotherapy on people when the survival rate is 32%. So that's
you give them the option.
We start doing these calculuses based on percentage of survival. what you're going to end up doing is you're going to stall progress is what you're going to do.
Of the percentage of people given the intensive care, 53% died in the delivery room, and then an 18% survived to discharge.
Now,
I feel like waking up John and having him get on here.
NICU is tough business, but overall, for so long, we had this drive that if it's alive, it's alive. It's alive. But let's keep it alive. You do what you can. That's this almost duty to care standard, and it's now become an interesting financial calculus. Well, it appears to me, which I can understand, because that is a cost. And
this is why it's so interesting for me for the states that they don't actually have, like, they have that choice, because I can understand there being exactly the calculator in place for Canada, because regardless, it's, we're paying for everybody, right? So, but in a place where they kind of expect most people to foot a bill, you would think that there would be a fund in place for those who can't, or something like this happens, like an emergency, so that they, I don't know.
Yeah, and certain hospitals, like teaching hospitals, I mean, the bills will run up. Sometimes there's some grace that is granted, because the literature on NICU procedures and all the happy things that are encountered, happy and otherwise things that are encountered in treatment protocols and that kind of thing. It gets developed because of people trying, doing whatever they can. I mean, we wouldn't be saving children under 25 weeks if we hadn't had that it's alive approach. We'd be having a lot of trouble with infants with poorly developed lungs. There's a weird thing that happens where, there's the poor development of a preemie, and then there's that really strange 8-month thing that happens where you think these kids are pretty much cooked and they should be all right, yet they have lung problems. So, and then you have digestive system issues and things like that have to be waltzed through. But we have learned an enormous amount about the care of premature children, and we've learned about the efficacy of certain treatments and others, how much isolation. They used to isolate the poor little bastards. They used to blind a lot of children in incubators. They don't do that anymore. And they encourage contact, and so that you're not dealing with like a sensory deprivation chamber for the poor critter, which is almost how they're described, because like I said, they're like little spider monkeys when they're that little. But an awful lot of them do survive.
What were you going to say, Jenna?
Well, I was going to say, after Nicholas was born yesterday, because of course he had to be checked out and stuff, so we had our own room because mother, but it was one of the things they did Bush was, make sure you're doing skin to skin and all that right away, because it's important for that baby to have that. And I actually also, so Prospero mostly knows, well, and I guess a lot of what we went through last year with Elizabeth. We didn't have her in a hospital because we couldn't have her where we wanted her. So I had a really good friend who was willing to come here and help us make it so Elizabeth lived. And our bedroom look more like a hospital than it normally does. And we did whatever was possible for Elizabeth because that's what she needed. And we knew if she went to Cape Cod Hospital, she wasn't going to come out alive.
Wow.
James got her home, and
Do you ever think you make a difference?
we,
That's the real deal right there, my friend.
well, I'm lucky that I have people in my life that are willing to pretty much move in and help keep my baby alive.
Oh, hell, I wish I
Until
lived
she's
next
able
door
to-
to you.
No kidding. No kidding. It's like, oh, you think you've hurt yourself? Come on over here. We've got a full X-ray set up in the basement.
Yeah, absolutely.
No, the basement floods. Can't have one there. But
Oh, okay. Is it in the attic with the bats? It's just-
we don't
I
have
just
an
I just would want to hang around Jenna for the access to the children.
no kidding. No
This is
kidding.
just- Raising
Yeah.
kids is just it's the
Basement.
best.
The basement would be great for flipper babies, eh, Prospero?
Oh my God.
Well, and I want to say Elizabeth was
You
born
awful
in
person.
February last year,
No.
and that child now, she doesn't walk, she runs and says 3 words in her sentence.
Well, it's like
Yes.
the new babies in Skep's life. I just
Mhm.
can't wait for the shift from failure to thrive to
Oh yeah.
oh dear
Yeah.
God, would you please stop putting on weight?
It happens. It's happening every day. Those kids are just blossoming.
Yeah.
Weeds.
Yeah, it's
They're gonna be crawling.
amazing.
They're putting on baby fat. That's the thing.
oh
You know,
good.
4
They're
months
getting
old.
chuddy cheeks and
They're
getting
4 months old, and they look like newborns, Jenna.
oh.
They looked like they were just straight out of the womb. You just go, my God, these kids have not been getting nutrition.
Yeah.
And they hadn't. They feed them. When the screaming just gets too loud, they finally fix them a bottle. Oh my God, they were in terrible shape. But we're not going to get into that anyway.
But
yeah, so
Skep
that's
has really
a
good
lot
people in
better
his
now.
life.
Mm-hmm.
That's a lot better now, and they're coming along and doing really well. And that it's cool that people like my daughter, my stepdaughter, can make a difference in people's lives.
Uzi Q makes a good point in chat about pediatricians. They have to deal with nervous parents and screaming kiddos.
Yep.
You're not kidding. My mother used to recount what a mess she was when I was born. Because, of course, I had a heart murmur, so they scared the shit out of my parents. That at any moment I was going to keel over. My father told me my mother would stand over my crib watching me sleep.
Oh, your poor mom.
Yeah, but the
she
pediatrician
needed
picked me
a
up by the
doctor
foot
talk.
and waved me around in the room and said, "See, they're really flexible."
It's not that the pediatricians. It's not that the pediatricians have less to do or are bad or anything like that. I think the reason that they have the specialty is it has accrued some professional disfavor, frankly, is that so many people went into pediatrics. And I remember talking with a medical school professor here at Southwestern, and she was telling me if one more girl from New Jersey comes down here and says she wants to go into pediatrics, I'm going to wring her fucking neck. And she used several slurs in that. I really cleaned that up a lot.
Yeah.
But at any rate, this so there were so many of them, and nobody wanted to. Nobody, they can't get enough in the surgical specialties. And that's starting to change now. They've just incentivized it so much. And there's
You
nothing
now
like
not just get a crown, but butt robes.
Well, no, you get a break on paying back your medical school. You get help from the government paying back your medical school.
I thought they were going to play Hail the Conquering Hero every time they walked into the
No, they do that
theater.
already.
Yeah, I was going to
They do that
say.
already.
That's the one thing about
Free?
surgeons. That's the one thing about surgeons. They're either really wonderful or they're complete pricks. I mean, that doesn't mean that they're not both great
Yeah.
at their craft, but they come in two flavors.
But
medical divinity or pretty cool guy.
Well, and there are surgeons and there are surgeons. The general surgeons, yes, they're very respected by the other doctors. The ophthalmological surgeons are typically the top 1% of the top 1% of the medical class gets selected into those. And those generally, usually are the very best doctors on earth. No fooling. That is that is the most difficult, by far, the most difficult specialty to get into. And as far as residency, but the gynecologists, they don't get any respect at all. The gynecological surgeons, the general surgeons and look at the gynecologist and just say, I do that on, I pass by the uterus on my way to real surgery. That's kind of the way. And they look and there's a saying among general surgeons that if you want to hide something from an orthopedic surgeon, put it in a medical school textbook. Indicating they don't know, they're a bunch of cabinet makers who don't know any medicine.
Those are the doctors, though, the surgeons that amuse me, or the specialists, particularly like cardiologists, because they can be, they kind of come in the two flavors too, of strutting prick or really easygoing person.
Yeah.
Listen to a doctor describe what he does, and you'll find out whether he's somebody you want treating you or not.
Yeah.
If a cardiologist waltzes into the room and goes, I know normally you see the plumber, I'm the electrician, but I'm covering rounds today. You've got a practice with a good sense of humor, where they actually are kind of defining themselves as tradesmen. We had a GI guy who lived catty corner from us.
Yeah.
And he was like, he said, all right, I'm a gastroenterologist. Look at it this way. If you want me to discuss the exhaust system in your car, you got a chance. Don't ask me about pistons.
Yeah.
I don't do that stuff.
Yeah.
And I mean, I already knew he wasn't a.
Of course, that's a surgical specialty. That's a high branching. That's a high performing surgical specialty.
Yeah, but it's
hard to get into. Believe it or not.
His attitude was like, he said, I can check your exhaust manifold. I can check your tailpipe. But he had that attitude. I mean, they had like 6 or 7 kids. They let them ride their bikes without helmets. I mean, I was living near a libertarian.
GI.
But I mean, he wasn't. He didn't walk around saying, hello, my name is Doctor.
Yeah.
He was like, hey, Chris here.
Yeah.
So there was
You have your own Chris doctor? I have 2.
Well, he isn't my doctor. He was my neighbor for a good long while. But
Chris Jr. is one of my best friends, and his father's also a doctor.
Yeah, and it's
You more or less have your staff, Jenna.
Yeah, I was gonna say, if any of us really get ill, we're coming to your house because you've got these people on speed dial.
Her rod and her staff will comfort you.
Yes.
Well,
See what I did there?
but
I did. Yea, though you walk through the valley of dogs. The valley of children. You might have to fear evil there, though.
What'd you say, Jenna?
I was just thinking about, I know you were talking about different rods, but I still want to know how they got the rods inside my bone.
Excuse me.
Yeah.
You don't want to know. Really,
I
you
really
don't.
do.
Okay, I think it involved glue
Where did they get the rods into where?
into
Inside
her
my
bone.
bone.
I said I think it involved glue. It's you don't want to know.
Upper, lower legs on each side have rods inside the bone.
Yeah, it's
Drills.
not drills. It's not.
Oh yeah, Home Depot.
And you know that wood glue filler?
Mhm.
That stuff.
Yeah.
I have screws.
Yes. Yeah, they screwed the bits of the bones back around the rods. That's what they did, and they hoped that the bones would knit back together.
So if I say I have a screw loose, I could be talking I'm crazy. I could be talking about my screw going loose.
Either one would fit, wouldn't it?
Mm-hmm.
On alternate Tuesdays.
Yeah, you have so many rods in your bones that they may have gone to a nearby body shop to get extra.
Oh, now your left
Hey,
channel.
Harry. Yeah, I was gonna say
Yeah,
my left ear
Harry.
loves you, my right ear misses you.
Yeah.
You're not in my right ear anymore.
There's a man chuckling in my left ear, and it's really cute.
You've gone mono. Mono.
I also have
mono.
a plate in
Harry's
my
got
head.
mono? That's not good.
Yeah.
Yeah, he got it
Kissing
from.
disease.
Yeah, that was interesting. I heard Harry in my left ear, and I actually felt like there was someone outside my headphones
Yes.
who was over there, and I looked over to my left. I said, "Who's over there?" Is
Yeah,
there-
this software's decided that I get to be.
Oh, that's annoying as hell.
The wandering Harry. Yeah, when
Yeah,
half-
it really feels like he's right in the room.
Haplex Harry.
My next meeting should be great. Actually, there's an easy way to fix that. Just
Yeah. There's,
there we go. That
there
should
you
be
go.
well.
You're back.
Now you're back in the middle of my head.
But that
back
feels a
in
lot
Twitter.
like
What do you do?
quitting. That feels a lot like quitting because I basically did it through StreamYard.
But you don't have time right now. You can have fun with it later. I'm trying to
There's
beat it in
nothing-
submission.
The weird thing is there's nothing like a live test because when I had my headphones on and I was trying this out, I'm like, man, this sounds great.
Yeah. Your reverb was outstanding, though. That
Yeah,
really
that
was
was fun.
voice of God.
This,
Jenna, listen to me.
this is kind of fun for me, to see this because Harry and I can remember back into the 1980s. Computers in the 1980s did not have the capability of playing sound. There was simply no such thing.
There was that.
Man.
No. Listen,
read the disc.
listen, guys. There was a beep. That's all there was a beep, and there was actually an ASCII control code that you could enter.
Beeps.
And it would just beep one time. It was called the bell. Remember that, Harry?
Mhm. Yeah, it's an ASCII code. It's like 12
ASCII
or something
6,
in
wasn't it?
octal.
Yeah.
I'd have to look it up. But my my TRS-80 had a tape drive that it would load. It would load audio program or load programs in off of. That was basically how you would load a program. You'd put a cassette tape in and plug this thing in, and it would play back, and then the computer would interpret that and turn it into executable
By the way,
code.
it was ASCII 7 was bell. B-E-L.
Bell, yes.
Remember? B-E-L. And you could also hit Control-G. And
Well, you can also just echo that ASCII character if you know how to use echo from the command line. But anyway,
Exactly.
Oh,
and it
before I
turned out
forget, it turns out you what? I was
Well,
listening.
you could output two different levels of output, and by doing that, there was this weird psychoacoustic thing where I could make it sound like it had not one, but two computer voices, and we were able to make very primitive synthesized music in the 70s. It wasn't very commonplace, but it was a while before things like Turtle Beach sound cards started hitting PCs.
Yeah, I was just going to say, yeah, exactly. What you were doing was very, very non-standard. That was kit work. And as far as getting a sound program with your K Pro, no, that wasn't happening back then. You could have any sound you want as long as it was ASCII number 7, the bell, beep. That was what you got. That was and to see the now now we have video phones, which was, along with flying cars, what I was promised when I was a kid.
Mm-hmm.
You know, we would have Dick Tracy had a wrist radio where he could talk into his wristwatch and communicate with HQ. And I wanted stuff like that. Still haven't made any progress really on the flying cars.
Damn it.
Yeah, I know. What up, dog?
Fuck this hoverboard shit. Where's my flying car?
Those flying buses.
I know how you can make a car fly, but
No.
it might not end well, and it involves a cliff.
At any rate, it just the insane amount of advance that has happened from a time that, looking back from my perspective, for some reason, those old days just seem like they were last week.
It was not that long ago.
It wasn't. It really was just 40 or 50 years ago.
Have you seen the movie Bullet, Skep?
Yes, of course I did.
With Steve McQueen.
Right.
Again, one of those movies that I recommend everybody watch. It's like, as much as I love a good Dirty Harry movie, Bullet is,
the car
to my
chase.
mind, it's the quintessential San Francisco cop movie.
Best car chase scene ever.
So good. It's such a great scene, and the whole cast is so good in that movie. But anyway, there's a scene in that movie where they're trying to solve the crime, and they're a bunch of cops sitting around in this room around a big radio telegraph thing that basically was an image transfer. So over the phone lines, they had a dot matrix printer that was printing out a really crude picture of some guy based on records that were halfway across the country with the FBI. And they spent a good 2 minutes in this scene, and you felt tension because I wonder what he's going to look like. I don't know. Yeah. This is very exciting. We're all waiting for this fancy new radio, this fancy new telephone picture sending thing to essentially fax a picture over from the FBI. And in a thing like that now, it'd be like, oh, well, just send me an SMS to my phone. Beep. Okay.
Yeah, exactly. Done and done.
Yeah, done and done. Hey, wait, you're not the person you say you are.
Yeah.
Book 'em, Dano. And then that's it.
Exactly. So, and you think about all the iterations that we went through. The whole thing with fax, fax came and went in our lifetimes. It was going to be there forever. Fax is here to stay.
You remember dialing a telephone number and getting that scream? You're like, God damn it! They gave me their fax line.
What's very fascinating is, we technically still have a fax number, but when someone faxes us, it arrives to us digitally.
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah.
And
so it's not even through a fax machine anymore.
No, you actually have fax printer drivers basically, and that thing comes out almost like print output.
Really. I think she has a external service. There are services that you can basically pay to do that for you.
Yes,
it's part of the EMR, so part of your electronic medical system. So
but I did that. I set up fax machines on Unix systems using a thing called Hylafax back in the day. I was very advanced.
Competitor of Microfax, which I was a dealer for.
Yeah, but Hylafax was free, so sorry, I'm not buying your product, Skep.
Well, no, it was the free stuff that cut Microfax's throat.
Yeah, I know.
Because they found out
awesome.
They couldn't charge for it anymore, and they were like, "Fuck."
Yeah, but it was money for people like me who would set it up for people. So, I had some VCs, and I actually had a company that was. It was a job placement outfit, and this was during the first internet boom. How incompetent do you have to be in the recruiting business during the first internet bubble and go out of business before the crash?
Yeah, yes.
Yeah, very. There's your answer, very. That's pretty impressive.
Yeah, the person who was running the company did pass away, and they replaced her with this guy whose brilliant plan was he had this new slogan that was going to turn things around. First, we plan the work, and then we work the plan.
First we plan the work, then
That's
we work the plan.
horrible. I hate it. And I hate him.
Yeah.
Is he alive
something from
still?
He actually tried to rip me off for about $1,000 and refused to basically pay a bill, claiming that I did not do something, and the thing that I didn't do I did incorrectly. Both of those things were in the same letter he sent me.
That's interesting.
Unfortunately for him, he didn't bother to check that I was actually working with the venture capitalist who bankrolled his firm.
Uh-oh.
Yeah,
That's not good. That's
I
not
got a
good at
check
all.
and an apology, and I framed both of them.
I hope after you
They cashed
after
the
you
check?
cashed it.
Oh, of course.
I would have too. Good job,
Yeah,
Glad. Yeah, that's
good
glad.
times.
idiot.
I could tell a few stories like that myself, and it was the best of times. It was the worst of times. I used to drive around in my pickup truck with like 5 computers and monitors in the back of my open pickup truck, just driving it around.
Mhm.
I'm here to install your computer system. Install the 5 computer system. Stand there while they cut me a check, and then drop by the bank and deposit the check in the bank. I did that for a living. That was my own company, by the way.
I'm gonna take the geode's role right now and say, Skep, that wasn't very wise of you.
Oh.
Wise Terminals. I was also a dealer for Wise Terminals and for Cume Terminals. QVT 102s, and very widely selling terminal. You could for one thing, unlike most dumb terminals for Unix systems, this one was a color terminal. You could have it in amber or green.
Amber is much nicer. Honest to God, Amber really was much nicer. So much easier in the eyes.
Yeah,
Yeah.
well, it wouldn't be Oregon Trail if it was in amber. It's
Absolutely.
Gotta be in green.
Adventure has to be played in green. I
Yeah.
agree.
or black and white, but yeah.
Yeah,
Green
black
spinach
and
color.
black and white on and it under a CICS banner.
We had a client, the wife of the doctor that we were doing billing for. We got new medical software that we purchased. I mean, we got clients to purchase that we trained on, and she wanted to know about it, and it was kind of a 4th generation COBOL,
Mhm.
and believe it or not,
What year is this?
this was 96.
96. So Micro Focus. There was some compiled COBOL at that time.
Yeah,
So,
it was. It was kinda. It wasn't quite.
was
okay.
not interpreted.
But she got confused and thought that's why the monitors were blue, because it was
Cobalt.
Cobalt blue.
yeah,
Yeah, COBOL blue.
yeah. And she was not dumb, but that was a spectacular moment.
We
to
all
just-
have our stories about getting used to the computer.
Prospero, I know somebody who for 30 years thought the song was The Age of Asparagus. So it's
Oh, that's even better.
yeah.
Yeah, it is.
All right.
That's way
I
better
have
than
an
Cobalt
embarrassing
Blue.
one.
I thought that Ray Charles was saying the dogs say good night. The dark sacred night. The dogs say good night.
Yeah.
You know that song, I'm Too
Good night.
Sexy For?
Yeah, right.
Yes.
so-
Yeah.
Yes.
I used to think they were saying 264. Never understood
to-
why they were 264.
Yeah. And afternoon delight's about pie or ice cream or something, isn't it?
Yes,
Yes.
it absolutely
It
is.
definitely is about pie.
Absolutely, yes.
I
it
used to
is.
think Psycho Killer was Psycho Kitty.
And
Yeah.
now,
So we're all fucked up. Okay.
Yeah,
Yeah.
the Mondegreens
Well, I
are
didn't.
really understandable. They are very understandable because even if you already knew the lyrics, when you read what people thought they were, you understand why.
you understand
And
why.
then you
Yeah,
start
there's a
hearing
bathroom on the
mistakes.
right is so
Yeah.
understandable.
Well, there's some Stevie Ray Vaughan that is unintelligible to me. Was it Cold Shot? It sounds like he's saying New Mexico shopping in there. I don't understand Stevie Ray Vaughan. He sings like he's got a mouthful of marbles.
Yes.
Not anymore. He's dead.
Well, okay, sang.
They die because of the marbles.
No, he died because of a helicopter. Just
Yeah.
you know.
Yeah, irregular verbs.
Was that the day the music died?
No, that was not the
No,
day the music
That was
died.
the day Stevie died.
That was
that
the
was-
day we
well,
stopped shopping in New
no.
Mexico.
That was
You know-
another flying machine and bad weather incident.
I know.
Yeah,
I
in
just
Wisconsin,
get your goat
Alpine
so
Valley.
much when
Yeah.
I say, "Is that the day?"
Watch
the
out for
music
that
died?
tree.
I know.
Whenever we bring up a dead flying musician,
George.
And then we get into dead flying NASCAR people. It's kind of a perverse overlap.
it's an evil cycle.
Yeah.
But we always circle back to it.
Skep, I think your stream is
Okay,
disintegrated.
you can.
That's fine.
Okay.
It's the
Somebody
appropriate time
change
for that
Jenna's-
because it's actually time for us to go
Wait,
around the
what are
horn.
we changing on Jenna?
We're changing her name to Jen Psaki.
No, we're not.
She just said circle back to something.
That's okay. She's allowed.
Making
What's a
fun
circle
of
back to that?
Saki.
No. We're making fun
Ah!
of you.
God, that's
Look,
painful. That's
I
not good at
have
all.
a soul.
my soul
I'm not
with my
evil. I don't kill small
Eek.
woodland creatures.
It
Or
does kind of look like
people-
she bites the head off of chipmunks, doesn't she?
That's how you get the goodness out of them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's how
She
you
looks
suck
like
the
she's
souls
person
out.
at the party that is claims she's watching the punch bowl, but is the one drugging everybody.
Better not be a punch bowl full of keys.
It's a punch bowl. It's a punch bowl full of Molly.
Whoever got her keys.
But listen, guys, we're going to go around the horn now because we've been doing this for 2 hours, and we will start with final words with, as always, Jenna.
My baby is already used to loud noises and, well, me.
Yay.
This whole thing, weird kid.
Congratulations, Jenna.
Yay.
That's wonderful. All right, functional. What do you got for us, bud?
Oh, babies are gross. I mean, your childhood was not complete unless you were chased by a rooster.
So it sounds like you're a cock teaser. Okay. Sora, what do you got for us?
My favorite misheard or misunderstood song lyrics is I'm sorry, Miss Jackson. I am for eels.
I like that.
And
Here.
it's much better if you addition to the song than the actual lyrics.
Then the actual lyrics are
Mhm.
perfect. That's a bonus. And all right, Harry, what do you got, man?
I'm just curious, how God mode should I go with the vocals for my meeting that I have to go to?
Big time.
Do you think I should just I should
Go all the
really
way.
go just
Crank it.
full
Crank it.
James Earl Jones and just show up and go, I am Ganesha? Just-
Yes. I think
Good night,
that-
everybody.
nice interest. All right, and my wing woman, Prospero,
Yes.
take us out of here.
Excuse me while I kiss this guy.
Well said. Yeah, one of the originals actually from Jay Hendricks. I want to thank everybody for being a part of this. I had absolutely no plan for tonight's stream, and I just wanted to see, what would happen if we just really had a truly unplanned conversation where it would go. I never thought that we'd spend an hour and 40 minutes talking about abortion, but you never really know with this crowd. But so I want to thank chat for sitting with us, putting up with us, and I hope you enjoyed it. We do this for you, and thank you, my friends, for being on the panel with me. It's been a real pleasure. I've enjoyed tonight so much, but for tonight, the zoo is closed. Good night, everybody.